Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Thank you guys for joining us. This is going to be a really fun one and a really big eye opener, I believe.
A super fun, big eye opener. And we have Dr. Paul here, who's wonderful.
Dr. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So,
Appreciate it.
yeah, this is going to be a big discussion, and we could start either with what's going on currently, though I do have picked out a lot of history just to give people a backdrop to perhaps a bigger picture. And you and I and Cindy were just speaking about that bigger picture, and I'm glad to see that we are most definitely in sync with what's going on. And there's so many different layers to the dangers that we're facing right now. Wouldn't you agree?
That's right. Oh, absolutely. I call them pillars. And those pillars are the biological pillar, the sociological pillar, the political pillar, and the finance, economic pillar. There's a lot of dimensions to take a look at here. And there's also the esoteric pillar.
Yes. And I was sharing that it was like a day before I did a video on 322 and Skull and Bones. I had directed people to your site because I had just discovered you. And, so I was just saying to people, go check out Dr. Paul. He really seems to know what he's talking about. And I could tell he's got a really good heart and he really cares. And then I did that. I was just inspired to do that one on 322 and Yale, Skull and Bones Society. I've done it before about a year and a half ago, but I just redid it, felt like it was time. And then I looked at your YouTube the next day, and you had put one out the next day, and it was like, wow, we're in sync. We are really thinking along the same lines, and it was exciting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I have a lot of subscribers now, thankfully, primarily because of Oppenheimer Ranch. Helping out and spread the word. But I have a lot of help, a lot of people that are listening, that are giving me information and, trying to connect the dots. And one of my kind of researchers on my channel, we were discussing about Voice of Go, or Guao. He's on Twitter, and he is a dissident for this, he's a dissident from China. He's against the CCP and the Xi regime. And he tweeted something that was very cryptic on January 4th of this year on his Twitter page. His Twitter handle is Voice of Guo, Guo. And on that January 4th tweet, he mentions, I'm paraphrasing, but it's cryptic, that there's 10 seconds and there's a minute, and I think that's a ratio of 6 or some sort of 1 to 6 ratio or 6 times something, but I don't fully understand. It says that there will be freedom in China, or China will live, and he gives a date of June 4th, 2020. Well, June 4th, 2020 is we believe the working hypothesis is a launch code through the CIA, which is run by the Skull and Bones Society, to do a overthrow of the CCP. And that Steve Bannon show, War Room, working with Miles Guo, or Guo, he changes his name, wherever he is, who is a billionaire, is a psyop to convince the American public to allow for this overthrow. I think most people would allow for the overthrow of the CCP because it is a totalitarian regime. But this cryptic message, if you take the date, the launch code to prove that it's a Skull and Bones operation or CIA operation, is that if you take 6, which is June, divide that by 2, you get 3. If you take the 4, the 4th, you divide that by 2, you get 2. And if you take the year 2020 and you separate the digits, it's 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0, which equals 4, divided by 2, and you have 2. So that is the embedded code for forward operations. And there is some nefarious things going on. And I'm worried. I'm very worried that they're going to use this pandemic as a means for forced vaccinations in the United States. The way the media is articulating it to the U.S., it's the coronavirus and it's dangerous, and we're working on a vaccine, and eventually, once we pass this pandemic, they are going to, I believe, force a coronavirus vaccine, an annual vaccine program, just like they're trying to do that with influenza. And the problem with the influenza, even though there was a lot of cases of influenza that in the United States that pass away, let's say 50,000 in the United States pass away from influenza, not all of them die from influenza. They die from complications of other things. But with that set aside, there is over 15 million people that get influenza a year. It's closer to like 50 million. So if you take 50,000 people that pass away and divide it by 50 million, it's a very small chance of dying from influenza. So the whole force doesn't hold water. But yet the media keeps on saying, 50,000 people or more will die. Well, that's true. Look at how many people don't die when they get it. And if you look at this case, the Wuhan virus, that's much more virulent. And it's a bioengineered virus, which I can prove. And this thing dates all the way back to 2007 or 2010 in the research literature to understand why certain types of coronaviruses, especially like SARS coronaviruses, are harbored in the natural host of the bat. So I understand why they did the bioengineering of this virus, but they're using this as a means to scare the public for forced vaccinations. The death rate on Wuhan is much higher than on influenza. So they're going to use this as to roll out what I call the Biopatriot Act. And what we are seeing in motion here is the slow movement, the slow rollout of what was very similar to 9/11. 9/11 was a terrorist. Here we have a pathogen. They're both trying to get us, and they're going to scare the public to try to roll out the Biopatriot Act. It is a dangerous pathogen. So people need to realize, because there's some people that are being cognitively dissident and thinking that this is not a crisis. It is a crisis, and that if you get this, it can kill you. You got to be careful. It doesn't mean that you are to be permanently scarred with pneumatic problems. This fibrotic scarring in the air sacs of the lung. But there's going to be people in our population that'll be deathly ill and possibly die because of this virus. And we need to make sure that if you get sick, that you go to the doctor right away, because it is very dangerous. It's not the common cold. But this is this is the Trojan horse to about a larger vaccination program in the United States.
So, we didn't talk in depth about exactly how we were going to go with this video, but, one of the things I got up right here is General Wesley Clark's statement, 7 countries in 5 years. And we have to recognize, there's been false flags after false flags, and things are done. And every time something's done, it's done to take our liberties away and bring us closer and closer to a outright totalitarian one world government system. That's really what's happening here. And so, I have this up right here. I mean, General Wesley Clark talked about it, and a lot of people don't realize, exactly what was stated in Project for a New American Century back in 1997, before Bush, he didn't really win the presidency, if you guys remember hanging chads and all. It was basically the neocons, they were coming into power in order to institute something, and that was what happened. And if you guys have read Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, he was warning that he said it was going to happen a month before it happened, before 9/11 happened, and a month after it happened, he was dead. So this is part of a much bigger picture going on.
But we got to make sure, we got to be careful that this country's been divided. It's been divided by thinking right or left.
Exactly.
And we need to come together and work the problem and water under the bridge of whatever our differences are that has transpired in the last, let's say, 5 years or so. The reality of the situation is that these secret societies are embedded on the Republican side and the Democratic side.
Exactly.
Right? And that it's a false narrative to think that it's just the neocons.
Mm-hmm.
And and there is an agenda to move nations into what I call an uber government, an overarching one eye in the sky government. And it is our obligation as American citizens to protect our Constitution, because it's we the people, not the government. The government. It's we the people. The government works for us. They are representatives of us. They are beholden to us. And if they divide us, they have power. They do not have power when we are together. So this, neocon or right or left, that all needs to go away. And we need to come together as citizens and say, no more of this. And we're rolling back to a pre-9/11 day, because 9/11 was a turning point in this country where we started to see our civil liberties eroded day by day. And I am trying to have our citizenry reach out to the representatives peacefully, but reach out to their local officials at the state level, at the federal level, and their governor, and say, I'm concerned about a Biopatriot Act in any form, and I am concerned about what the plan is for an outbreak. The government has not been transparent on what is going on. And this is how the secret societies work. They stay cloaked, and then they just wham you with their policy, because we're living in fear. And when we're living in fear, our cortisol levels are so high, we just want the problem to go away. So they feed on our fear. They feed on our division. But when we're united and we don't fear stepping up to the plate and saying, hell no, then they lose power. So I am begging all of my fellow citizens to reach out to your representatives and ask them, what is the plan for the outbreak for your local community, and share it with the rest of the nation, so we understand what the plan is, and that we can work together at grassroots to help our neighbors that are in need. And what I mean by that is that when you have an outbreak area and they start doing the quarantine, the surrounding communities around that lockdown can provide material, medicines, food, water, clothing, whatever they need at a grassroots level to reduce the dependency of the government. What they did was they divided us, and now everyone thinks that they need government to solve the problem. And the American spirit is about grassroots, helping your neighbor, and we can solve the problem together, working together.
I agree. And when we look at the history of things, as again, I have the poster up for the Project for a New American Century. It was all right out there, and everything is always telegraphed. We could see that. So as I was bringing that up, that was a think tank from 1997, and then they published it in 2000, and it's talking about a new Pearl Harbor, which we had. And when you think about it, when we look at what happened, like Operation Paperclip, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the top Nazi scientists came into our government and took high positions, even running NASA, and what did the Nazis do? I have a statement up there: the more we do to you, the less you seem to believe we are doing it, by Joseph Mengele. This is scary stuff, and when we look at what's happening in China, of course is one of the more authoritarian regimes, and it is the poster child for the NWO and the cabal that really runs the planet. But a lot of people don't realize that so much has been done to the United States citizenry already. Like Operation Northwoods was a false flag attack. And there's been so many false flags, thankfully, that did not get implemented. The goal there was basically trying to get us into a war with Cuba, so we could go ahead and invade Cuba. There was Operation Sea Spray. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but that was a 1950 U.S. Navy secret experiment where they basically sprayed bacteria over the entire San Francisco area, and in order to track how it would progress. And so this was in 1950. This was an experiment done on U.S. citizenry. Of course, we had the Tuskegee Airmen who were allowed to die because they just wanted to see how syphilis would progress if they didn't treat people with it, and compare it to people that they were treating. So that was a brutal thing as well. And I have listed here top 10 U.S. government experiments done on its own citizens, and Tuskegee is number 1. Stateville Penitentiary malaria study was done by the U.S. government back in the 40s. Again, just basically, some people got drugs, other ones didn't. Nobody knew what was going on, and it was just all basically very, very Nazi-ish in the way it was
right.
carried out.
To dovetail into what you're saying, we also see it with nuclear testing in the Pacific Ocean.
Exactly.
And how what those effects would be on the islanders. We told them to go back home, and knowing that there was going to be radiation, and they were tracking how the radiation would affect that population over time. They did that on purpose.
They did.
And it's unfortunately. I'm kind because I want to be a medical doctor and all this. I believe in science. What I don't believe in is using science as a tool or a weapon to hurt people. Science should be used as a tool to help people and to understand our surroundings and make our lives more, safer and more, more enjoyable, and have a better understanding of the world around us. But unfortunately, there is a group of people, a lot of nefarious things under the disguise of, it's for national security. Even the Ivy League during the 50s, was doing a lot of psychological testing on individuals to understand how they can manipulate, or they were locking individuals up, and they were actually doing lobotomies to understand what areas of the cortex they could damage to understand what is working, what's not working. And what allowed them to do it is that they would just say, well, we're trying to heal someone that's psychotic.
Yeah.
And so they were actually, causing brain damage to understand how the brain works on individuals. And it was wrong. It was totally wrong. And unfortunately, a lot of the understanding of what areas of the brain react, a certain way, what the function is of that region of the brain was based on this research.
It's scary stuff, and I've done videos on that too. And right now, on this link I have up, they actually injected plutonium, through using syringes in the 40s into citizens just to check it out. So
wasn't this the thing that Bill Clinton brought up and apologized?
Yeah.
During his administration. But here's the problem: is they've already done the damage, and it's years later, and then they may say sorry, 50 years.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of evidence of nefarious things happening to our population, and another one is 5G. This is another rollout of a technology that is going to affect our biological system.
Exactly. And that's a big one. And so part of it is, we don't know, because there's so many different layers, and there's a lot of things that are potentially suppressing immune systems, making people more susceptible. So even if something wasn't so virulent, it will have a bigger effect now because of the layers of everything that we're being exposed to.
Right. Well, one of it is for them to understand what's the mechanisms, and they have to use us as little guinea pigs to understand it. But I do think that these secret societies are trying to cull the population, because if a cosmic event happens similar to let's say like a major burst from the sun that seems to, in the geological record, and I'm not an expert at this part of it, but in the geological record, there seems to be some sort of activity of the sun that is caused by a wave from the center of our galaxy. And that wave is approximately 12,000 years. So every 12,000 years, there is a signature in the sediment, in the sedimentary rock. There's this 12,000 year signature. And societies seem to be ebbing and flowing. And I think that these secret societies may have some understanding, maybe passed down from generation to generation. I'm not sure exactly how they did this. And we're near the end of the good old days. And we're moving towards a catastrophe, a geological a catastrophe soon. Now, when I say soon, it could be 200 years from now, because we're talking geologically. But we're near the tail end of that 12,000 year cycle that I'm talking about. And they may need to cull the population to be able to go underground when they have the gamma ray burst, as this wave moves through our solar system and contracts and expands the sun. When that wave hits, it's gonna cause a perturbation in the sun, and it's gonna be in a massive gamma burst. And whatever side of the Earth is facing the sun at that moment in time is gonna get fried. And they have to go underground. And this is the reason why there seems to be ancient civilizations that have seemed to dug into caves or dug underground to try to survive it. We've had civilization. The point I'm making, I know this sounds kind of wacky, but we've had civilizations that were very advanced that were lost because of this gamma burst. And we are approaching a point in time where resources are going to be limited, and they're trying to protect their own race or Aryanism to go underground, and all the other ethnicities are wiped off.
Yeah, no, it does.
If you follow where I'm going with this.
Oh,
but there's quite a bit of esoteric literature about what I'm saying.
Oh, sure. No, I've done like 2,000 videos, and this is what I've been talking about for like the last 2.5 years, going on 3 years now. So what you're saying to me is absolutely logical. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, so they're trying to protect their own quote race, and go underground when that event happens. Now, I don't think that event is going to happen tomorrow, but there is an orchestrated effort to control societies. And independent on if there's going to be a cosmic wave from the center of the galaxy that does a perturbation on our sun, it is our duty as citizens and patriots to protect the Constitution. And we need to rise up. The point I'm making is, don't be passive. Don't be a sheep. Don't allow this system to happen. We only allow it to happen when we sit passive. This is part of it's so visceral for me, for your listeners, so they understand where I'm coming from. I mean, my father's side of the family came to the United States in 1790. All right, we have fought almost every single major war that this country has fought, including the Civil War on the Union side. All right, and I've had so there's a lot of in the core of me is patriotism and to protect the Constitution and our great country. On my mother's side, they escaped the Holocaust, and the ones that couldn't escape out of the family, from my grandmother's mother, so my great grandmother, and her brother died in the Holocaust. And I've had great uncles that were tattooed, that survived, the Holocaust. So I am concerned deeply about this problem, and the moving of our population into FEMA camps or detention centers and force vaccinated and digitized. How's it, these numbering, this numbering is no different than the tattooing of my great uncles. And it is unacceptable as a Jew and as an American patriot to allow this to happen. And I'm begging everyone to step up and contact your representatives and say, hell no, we're not going to let this happen. And we're going to roll back to a pre-9/11 surveillance, because this is never ending. We need to root out this evil that's embedded into the government. We need to seek and destroy. And there's a lot of patriots out there that are willing to go kinetic if they decide to roll out a Biopatriot Act or something similar.
I totally.
People need to step up. People need to step up.
I totally agree with what you're saying. Before we went live, we both, you were expressing what I was thinking, and I said, honestly, I'm more worried about a second Holocaust than I am this virus, because I feel that this virus could be the trigger for a global, basically a global Fourth Reich, when you get down to it. And we could see that being rolled out and implemented. And I had said that Germany might have lost World War II, but the Nazis didn't. That's the key. The Nazis just kind of moved into our government, and they've been in positions of power. And if you know about Admiral Byrd and going down to Antarctica and getting his butt kicked, I don't know if you've looked into all that before, but it's there. And so I have a lot of slides that I'll just kind of be rolling through as we're talking, but when you look at the connections of the Bush family to I.G. Farben, and of course the Bushes were all skull and bones, and
not only were they skull and bones, but Prescott financed the Nazi Party.
Yeah.
They were and the Kennedys, and the Bushes were heavily integrated early on in the Nazi Party in the 1930s. And it was only after there was such a swell after the bombing of Pearl Harbor that they backtrack, because it almost seemed like they were wanting the Nazi parties to win in Europe for whatever reason. I'm not, I don't know. I'm not an expert at this particular segment of history here, but to me, the Bushes are complicit on the deaths of my family. And the thing is that Skull and Bones, during their initiation, eat on Nazi cutlery. They have plates that actually came from the Nazi Party. Skull and Bones and the Bonesmen are a faction or a tributary of the Nazi Party, and it's time to hunt them down, seek and destroy, and have them hung from a tree for being traitors to this country. And it's not just the Skull and Bones; it's the Scroll and Key also. And there's something very nefarious going on at Yale. And some people will say, "Oh, you're from Harvard and you're just spouting off on Yale." Well, no. The problem is there's a lot of research that you're showing, and other channels have showed, that there is a deep integration of the Nazi Party or an Aryan type a philosophy embedded in this country, and we need to root it out, hunt it down, and hang it.
Yeah, I mean, the connections are so deep, between what's been our leadership, quote unquote, or our apparent leadership, and Nazi Germany, as people are I'm seeing everybody just commenting in there, and they're right on. Ford Company used the Nazis' slave labor of the concentration camps and made profit off of it. And, that's just another connection. When we look at the Bush family, the ties are so deep into the Nazis. And, it's undeniable. And even, the Bush Bank tied to Nazi funding. I mean, I have all the links for everybody. They could go start doing.
Not only that, George Bush Jr. stated right after 9/11 that the Constitution is just a piece of paper and it could be, it could be nullified. So that right there is, where is his heart? His heart is not in the country. Even though, he plays on the hearts of patriotism during the Iraq and Afghanistan war, right after 9/11. The reality is that his core soul is coming from the Nazi Party, and he is part of the problem. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people on the right, that put him on a pedestal, but he's not. He is part of the evil, quote, the evil empire, or the dark side, or trying to use as many analogies as I can, like Star Wars. But the idea here is that the guy is coming from a very, very dark soul. And when someone says that the Constitution is just a piece of paper and you can absolve the civil liberties of individuals and roll out the Patriot Act, that is treason. That is not being the president and protecting the Constitution. And he should be tried for treason. But no one's talking about that. What they do is that they say, "Oh, he's doing so great. He's doing really good for veterans that have had ailments or amputations and stuff." And he is doing good work in his private philanthropy and trying to help these soldiers. And my heart goes out to the soldiers. But the problem is that his family, the core of his family, is rooted in Nazism. Just like I'm saying, the core of my family is rooted in patriotism and making sure another Holocaust doesn't happen to our country.
Yeah, and the ties are just incredible when we start looking into them. Like I brought up before in a different video, that Pope John Paul II worked for IG Farben, and he was a salesman for them, and they're the company that supplied the gas for the Nazis, for the concentration camps, and Zyklon B. I mean, it's all interconnected with the Zyklon B again. IG Farben, tied into the Bilderbergers, tied into the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. This is all completely interconnected. Names have changed as well. Family names have changed. And, I did a video yesterday that usually the videos I put up have 97, 98% approval typically. And, of course, this one was a little critical on President Trump. And there's some that believe that he's the man in the white horse, the white hat. But he's another player in all this too. And
well, let me just interject for a second. I have been and will be a Trump supporter in terms of his presidential, not making sure he stays as president for the next election. I am a supporter of Trump. I'm not a supporter of his personality. I think he has deep personal issues. But as president, you can be a good president and a bad person. You can be a good person, a terrible president. But the point I'm making is that I think Trump, he's probably one of the better presidents that we've had in the last 100 years. The reason I say that is that he's trying to move the country into localization and not globalization. He's telling people that stop sending your manufacturing overseas and bring it back to the United States so we have the ability to protect our own nation. Unfortunately, what has happened is the powers that be, the globalists, the eye in the sky, has wanted to erode the manufacturing prowess of the United States for shareholder maximization. Not realizing, or did realize, not sure, but the end result is the same. We are having a problem now. And when you have these supply chains breaking down, we no longer are going to be able to continue our manufacturing. Most of our drugs are made in China. Most people don't realize that. Mm-hmm. Most of our drugs are made in China. So if China decides not to give it to us, or can't give it to us because their whole society is breaking apart, where's the medications for that, for your neighbor, or for let's say for your father and mother that's on heart medication and they need to control their blood pressure? and they can't now because the supply is limited, and they can't get the statins or whatever, and then they have a heart attack. See, this is the point that people got to realize, that Trump, there is a part of Trump that is very nationalistic and anti-globalist. That is what we need at this point in time to try to roll back this integration, to pull them. It's similar to what's going on with Brexit. England woke up and said, we're not going to have Brussels dictate to us how to run our country. And Trump is waking up and saying, we're not going to let the UN dictate to us how to run our country. And oh, by the way, we have shipped too much of our manufacturing base overseas, and it's time to bring it home. And it's time to be local. Globalization, a little bit of globalization is okay, but uber globalization is a very fragile system, and it will weaken our country. And he's the only president in the last 100 years that has said this. But I'm sure there's problems with him, but he's the only one. He's sure as hell better than Bush.
I view it in a... Well, I don't disagree with that. I actually would go to the extreme of like Rand and Ron Paul and pull back all American military and say...
Oh, I agree with you on that. But the problem is that I agree with you. Rand Paul, I love. I love that. I love him. But the thing is that he is portrayed in the media in such a way that he's not going to be able to get the nomination for presidency.
Right, that's where the system's so broken, because that's exactly what they're doing is keeping somebody. That's
why, this is the point I'm making. That is why we need to band together as citizens and forget about the right and left, forget about Republican or Democrat, and band together, raise the voice, talk to your representatives, and tell them enough is enough. And we're going back to pre-9/11 days. And with that voice, it will allow people like Rand Paul to get in. But because they divided us, they can't get Rand Paul in. Because we're bickering too much. I'll tell you what, the emblematic point, the thing that really broke the camel's back, they tore up the speech behind the president during the State of the Union address. That was one disrespect. It was disrespectful to the American citizens, and it is emblematic of her trying to...
So, do we still have you, Dr. Paul?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. The way I look at it is, I think that we get a lot of half-truths. I think they know what we are starting to realize needs to be done. So I think there's a lot of lip service that's paid. And while I think the agenda keeps rolling on, that's really how I feel. So, I mean, I agree with so much of what he stated, and I did want him over Hillary, because I just had this gut feeling that if Hillary got in, we would have already had World War III. But I don't trust anybody that actually gets in. And when we look at some of the background, I'm not sure if you know about John Trump, and really the family name is Drumpf. Friedrich Drumpf was the great grandfather who was actually he avoided doing service in the Bavarian military, and that's how he came over here. He was actually kicked out. And now John Trump, because they changed the name from Drumpf to Trump, he actually ended up taking over all of Tesla's experiments, and he was head of research at MIT and also working for the government. So that makes me really suspicious when we look at that. So,
well, this is important to point out to your listeners. Not all secret societies or individuals in secret societies are bad. There are factions within the secret society. And there are, we've been using the word lately in the media, white hats. There are white hats in these secret societies. So you got to remember that, there's a battle going on. There's a battle going on for our nation at the large. There's battles going on inside these organizations, these secret societies. So yes, did Trump's family have intimate knowledge of some of Tesla's experiments? Yes. And I find it odd that he happens to end up being president, but he also, you got to listen to what he was saying in some of his speeches, especially his inaugurational speech. He was saying that, you know, unleashing the great power of science and discovery that the American people have. I think he is hinting at technologies that have been known since Tesla's death.
Yeah.
And we're going to start seeing it leak out. You're starting to hear a lot more about this point zero energy stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not an expert at point zero energy, but you're hearing that there are ways to reduce our dependency on the machine, all right, and be more local. And it goes back to localization versus globalization.
Oh yeah,
Local sustainability and all that, and not being dependent on the big machine of corporate America. You know, like when Tesla was doing his inventions and he was dealing with J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan told him, if you can't put a meter on it, I don't want you to invent it. Exactly. Because he couldn't make a profit.
Yeah, it's all about control, and I don't know if you've ever checked out Dr. Stephen Greer, but he talks all about that. We could have had 0 point like 100 years ago, so this is part of keeping us in this matrix. You know, the thing is, when we look at the Nazis, right? The Nazis did so many genetic experiments. And you know, the atrocities. The pictures are just amazing at what they did, and I picked out just a few of the very, very tamest, because the experiments they did were just so inhumane. They're demonic. They're beyond demonic. Just absolutely disgusting. And of course, these people were all fenced in. They were all in camps. You know, they had no choice, and people went missing. And you know, I got a lot of links for people. So they were all about genetic experimentation and genes and genetics, and just like I pay attention to people's words a lot. And you know, Trump was talking about his background. He was talking about his uncle that, you know, was from MIT that took over Tesla's work, and he says, my father's brother was a brilliant man. We have very good genetics. Similarly, he told NBC about his uncle to point out that, I mean, it's a good gene pool right there. Trump pointed to his head. I have to do what I have to do. And I don't trust any politician, period. So I look at them all critically and cynically and don't believe in them, because I don't think that the powers that be would allow somebody to get in that could actually affect change. I think that our matrix is way too deep and interwoven. So we really do need to wipe out the system.
I do think that there's a battle within these secret societies, and I think that Trump is on, you know, the other side than, let's say, the Bushes, because of his stance and his comments about 9/11. He's not towing the line.
Right.
You know, and if he was towing the line of the establishment, why would they try to impeach him like they did? And why are they trying to weaken his optionality as president?
So this goes back,
because he is actually he's on the other side trying to fight against this dark side. Okay. You know, the negative side is going to think they're positive, and the positive side, well, you know, so it's all based on relativism. But from
again,
my point of view, Bush is from the negative side, the evil side, the dark side, and that Trump is coming from the more positive side. But it doesn't mean that he doesn't have nefarious things going on. Like, for example, I am very upset with Trump for not pushing, as president, through executive orders, to stop the shadow banning of individuals like you and I.
Oh,
you know, with the social media. The social media has way too much control on our civil liberties as freedom of speech. And he could have wrote with an executive order to stop Facebook and YouTube and Google from shadow banning and totally banning individuals from joining their platforms. It is unacceptable for a person like Tim Cook, okay, from Apple, to ban a person like, let's say, Alex Jones, to put an app on their store to be able to have them go to his videos. Because because Tim Cook thinks people want a curated, safe environment. You know, the thing is that his rights as a homosexual are protected Independent of if you're for homosexuality or not, it doesn't matter. But his rights to be a homosexual is protected by the Constitution. Tim Cook. But he'll take away the civil liberties of Alex Jones. See the problem here? This is unacceptable.
Sure. So what I feel is going on is that we're made to think one side's good, one side's bad, but I think that they're two sides of the same coin that are at battle with each other over dominance. So in my mind, Trump is the MIC. He's the military-industrial complex. And the other ones, like the Clintons and the Bushes and Obama, are all being controlled by the Rothschild Illuminati bloodline-led banking cabal. So they are the ones that have had the power. The MIC has been growing in power, and Trump is, he is the MIC. He's representing the MIC, knocking the banking cabal.
Yeah, but why don't we do this? Why don't we ban with Trump, have them pull down the banking cartel, and then once Trump's done, then we totally go the other way and pull down the industrial, military industrial complex.
Well, I think, like when the election was there with Clinton, I think he was the lesser of two evils. They felt like it gave us a little bit of time that we wouldn't have had with Clinton. But then I also thought the danger is, a military industrial complex is going to basically give us a martial law 24/7, 365.
All this information you're sharing is great information for everyone. Some of it I didn't know. And so it's really good stuff. It's very scholarly. It's good stuff for everybody. But the bottom line is this. We got to stop talking, and we got to start acting. And we got to start raising our voice and telling them enough is enough. Because if we don't, we're going to lose more of our civil liberties. And it's time to roll back to a pre-9/11 day. And we got to stop. We need to start working together and start building up networks, because if this thing goes kinetic, people are going to need to start realizing you got to start fighting for your country. So it's very theoretical that the secret societies and are one secret society is against another secret society and they're banning each other. That's all bullshit. All right, that's great academic stuff. The reality is that people need to raise up and say enough is enough, and we're taking back our country, and that these secret societies only have power because we let them have power. And people like you and me need to start telling people it's time to get a gun. It's time to start protecting your constitutional rights, and to tell them hell no and roll back to a pre-9/11 day. Because once they bring in 5G, it is going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder, and it's going to affect our immune system. And who knows what they do with the Biopatriot Act when they start pumping us up with a bunch of vaccinations that we have no idea what's in. So the time to act is now. The time to talk is way over. And that is the point that I'm making. And that's why I am trying to get to every channel on the internet and larger radio stations to spread the word that the time to talk is over. That what you're showing is theoretical. I agree, it happened. But the time to act and stop it is now. And stop talking about the secret societies. It's time to fight them. It's time to hunt, seek them out, and hang them for treason.
Yeah, it is time to take things to a new level, because we have to, especially when if China is the example, and one of the most chilling things I've seen is the WHO saying, China's doing a great job. We all need to emulate China. Well, what do we have in China? I mean, we saw a video of a young girl that looked to be like 20 years old and maybe 80 pounds dragged out of a car by 4 guys, and then it looks like they broke her neck. That's crazy. Right. We can't have that here.
Right. And I am begging those individuals that are listening to this channel that are part of the military, that are active or are on inactive duty, do not fire on your citizens during this pandemic. Do not. It's un-American. You can't fight this virus with a gun. You have to fight it with compassion and to help your neighbor. But if we start seeing in this country, mark my words, if we see this happen in our country, like we saw in China, where they're rolling people out and dragging them and forcing them into FEMA camps, I will lead an army to stop this from happening, because I am not going to have my country go down in flames because of some secret society, and I am not going to allow another Holocaust to happen to my people. Period. I'm willing to die for my country, and more people need to step up to the plate and say the same thing. But unfortunately, there's too many damn people sitting on the couch, and eating their Doritos and watching their football or their TV show and watching their country burn. And it's unacceptable. The time to talk is over. It's the time to action. Now, when I say action, the action is peaceful at this moment in time. But if they start rounding people up forcefully, without compassion, then it's game on and we go kinetic.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, and I could see even states pulling away and breaking off from the union, depending on how this goes, because I think there's going to be a lot of states that will, there's some...
No, that's not the answer. The answer, just like Abraham Lincoln said, our mission, the future generation's mission, is to make a more perfect union. It's not to dissolve the union. We are going to protect the union. We're going to protect our Constitution, and we're going to root out the rot of these secret societies that have embedded themselves in our government. But the people need to wake up and start getting engaged, and not view this stuff in a passive way. Our 1776 is now. It's time to move. Because 5G is coming, and they're going to roll out a Biopatriot Act. Mark my words. They're going to use this as a means for never-ending vaccination.
We can see it. I mean, one of the headlines today is the Dow tumbles as U.S. warns of hundreds of thousands of coronavirus cases in 2 to 4 weeks, basically, the timeline is that you're seeing here. This is ccn.com.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
U.S.
Exactly.
coronavirus outbreaks.
If we start getting a breakout at the seed centers, the 15 or so seed centers, or 13 seed centers in the United States, we start seeing that breakout because of the latency and the survival of the virus on surfaces for so long. You're going to see a lot of people infected, but they're different. The different cohorts of patients are going to be affected differently. Some people are going to have just like a very severe flu-like symptom and come out with it okay. There's others that are going to have severe pulmonary problems. And there's others on the other side of the spectrum, because of other complications, can get severe sepsis and have other organ failure. So it's going to be a whole spectrum of how this is affecting people. So people need to wake up that we got 2 viruses happening here. We have a biological one that could kill you. And the other virus is the government using this as an opportunity to roll out the Biopatriot Act. And I'm not going to let this, I am not letting my country burn down. So I'm spending all of my efforts to raise the alarm, to try to educate people on the scientific side and on the geopolitical and the legality side of what is going on with this. And I'm telling you, there's too many people being passive. We need to show action. And when you reach out to your representatives, they get scared, because every person that calls, they assume 1,000 people are thinking the same way in their district. Just one person.
That's really
1,000 in their eyes.
That's
we need people to call and get engaged before this gets kinetic. I don't want people to die. I don't want people to I don't want a war. But if we can't support our Constitution through safe means, then it'll have to go kinetic.
Right, and that's a really important point you made, because what people feel is they feel helpless. They think that, oh, what is it going to do if I call my local representative? But when you put it like that, like for every one that actually does call, they think 1,000 more are thinking this, that gives people hope, what you just said right there.
Right. I'm trying to give people hope, but but they have to act. That's the issue. They have to act and not sit there, like a bump on a log, and just passively watch the TV or the alt channels on YouTube like ours. There's too many people sitting on the sidelines. The country is in need. Your neighbors are in need. It's time to help. It's time to get engaged before it's too late. Because there's a lot of patriots that got lots of guns and a lot of ammo that will get engaged. And it will go kinetic if we get FEMA camps.
Yeah, we have Diamond in the house. I saw he's here too. Yeah, this is huge, and we don't want to go into a China situation. So everybody does have to speak up. I do agree with that, and I've been saying that we can't let them just constantly put these laws into effect. The way so many laws get signed is like at the last minute, and it's just pushed through, and then there's things in these laws that are obviously eroding our freedoms every time, and then you have the major events like 9/11 and...
Let me ask you a question, because you're pretty knowledgeable about the esoteric and the secret societies. What are you doing to solve this problem, other than just putting stuff on the internet? I'm not being facetious, and I'm not trying to be negative on you, because I'm on your side. But I'm trying to make a point with the others that are listening. What are you specifically doing?
Well, I mean, the main drift of the channel
Did you
is...
talk to your representative?
Have I talked to him? No.
Yeah.
No, I haven't talked to him.
That's the problem. That's the problem. There's a lot of people that haven't.
What I've been doing is trying to wake up as many as possible, which has been about...
I'm on your side. I know you're on. I know you're a patriot. I know that.
600,000 the last 3 weeks, so that's pretty good.
The point that I'm making is it's not just about getting the news out. It's also starting to network with people that are patriots, just in case it goes kinetic.
Well, the other thing is I am part of the Libertarian Party, because the Libertarian Party is what people that were Republicans used to think.
Do you have a gun?
Many.
All right. Well, then you're moving in the right direction.
Oh yeah, and
because I'll tell you what, FEMA camps are coming, and when FEMA camps are coming, I guarantee you, this thing is there's going to be a conflict. The patriots are going to rise up. That's why I'm begging the government to be more transparent, and I'm begging the citizenry to start reaching out to their citizenry to make sure that people are protected and our civil liberties are protected. People are protected from the virus and are cared for, and that we protect our civil liberties. I don't want this to go kinetic. I really don't. But if there is no other option to protect our civil liberties, it is our right and our obligation to all the men and women that have died for this country to make sure that we protect that Constitution. Because I'm sure as hell not going to let Nancy Pelosi stand up, as Speaker of the House and start tearing up a sacred document that we call the Constitution. It's not going to happen under my watch.
Yeah, there's so much to look at too, and then we know that the tech.
I'm begging you to reach out to your listeners. Will do things that you will be doing too. Your listeners are trying to get information and get educated and post stuff online in different capacities. But if you reach to your representative and you record it and you tell it, you show what is going on, then others will do the same, and there'll be a louder voice, and we'll be able to save this country. But if you're just going to keep on posting about secret societies, that is not the answer. The answer is to get more engaged with the government and tell them hell no.
Yeah, part of what I've always asked other people to do is, in my opinion, a vote for a Democrat or a Republican is a wasted vote, because both of those parties are so corrupt that you have to go beyond that.
It doesn't matter who you vote for. It's to get engaged and tell the representative, whoever is in there, what kind of policies you want.
Well, it does matter if you vote for somebody that's getting, if you vote for somebody that's on the payroll of the powers that be, then you're not going to get anything done. They're going to give.
You're missing the main point. We got to stick together, because if we're divided, they win.
Well, that is the point, and that's why I'm telling people, get out of the matrix. As long as you're putting in people that are in the matrix, you're not going to get anywhere.
Do you think the Libertarian Party is going to be the only answer?
No, not at all.
Right. They're all a problem.
Exactly.
It's we the people. It doesn't matter who you vote for. Once they're in, they're beholden to the people. Well, but if we're divided, they won't listen to us. They'll listen to the lobbying groups.
So they're only beholden to the people to a certain point, and we're getting very close to the point where we're going to have like a military dictatorship and lockdown, and then that's where we're at.
That's why the patriots need to step up to the plate and say we're going to protect the Constitution and we're not going to allow it to happen. And that's why I'm reaching out to the military to say, do not shoot on your fellow patriots.
Well,
if you do,
I've said that many times.
You're a traitor to. If you fight, if the military shoots on their citizenry to try to stand up for their civil liberties, then they're traitors to the Constitution. They should not follow orders to shoot on its citizenry and to try to de-arm it.
Most definitely, and that's what I've said to people in videos going back 3 years now, that we have to get the people in the military to wake up and realize what they're joining.
Let me give you an example. I'm watching the chats here while we're talking, and there's an individual that's saying this guy's name's Crypto Nana. All right, and he says, Paul, calm down. When you sound hysterical, people stop listening. You know what? I'm trying to raise the alarm. We're going to lose our country if we don't step up to the plate. So you tell Crypto Nana, get his act together. Or maybe it's a she, I don't know. But to call their representative, because do they want a Biopatriot Act? Do you want to be forced vaccinated? Do you want to go into a FEMA camp? Do you want another fucking Holocaust? Because that's what's coming.
Oh, we can see what's coming.
It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. People need to wake up and protect this nation and help their neighbor.
Yeah, we have to get out of this matrix. That's the bottom line. And so everybody has their own way of which they're doing it. Everybody sees things a little bit differently. I don't know. Do you have a gun, Dr. Paul?
I have means to guns. My brother has.
You don't have a gun on your person.
I don't have, because I'm in New York. I can't have one.
Well, why would? See, I mean, to me, New York is such a, it's such an anti-liberty state in so many ways. Same thing with California. I would not live in those states.
Well, I was just trying to get to medical school before Wuhan happened, and now I am awoke and I am really afraid of the Biopatriot Act and another Holocaust, and I am very engaged on this. But you're right. I mean,
being in New York City is insane.
New York City has certain laws that really curtail your freedom to have a gun.
I'm allowed to open carry where I am, and I do open carry. And I'm also living in an area where there's less than one person per square mile. So, I've paid attention to what I'm preaching, and I'm actually doing that. I've been transient, going from state to state. That's why I haven't basically called a state rep, because I don't really have a state. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to go, but I've reached 20 million people over the course of this YouTube channel to try to wake them up to the fact that we're in a divided country, a divided world situation, and we got to unify. That's the bottom line. So, that's the way I've choose to do it, is by showing how we've been controlled through politics, how we've been controlled through religion and philosophy, ideology, and we need to wake up as a group. So I do agree with you there, and I do think that there is the potential for a second Holocaust as well. It's right in our face. We could see it coming.
My people lost their lives because they didn't wake up to the early signs, and they just thought it was just the normal standard operating procedure of programs throughout the centuries. And they ghettoized us into Warsaw-type ghettos, and they starved us, and they eventually moved us into work camps and then the death camps, and gassed us. The Jewish people didn't wake up at the beginning, and I'm begging people in this country to wake up and make sure that we do not get forced vaxxed and get thrown into these detention centers or FEMA camps or whatever the word they're using. I'm begging my citizenry to listen and get engaged, because if you don't get engaged, they're going to force it on And they only can force it on you when we're divided.
Exactly.
We need to work together because the power of numbers, there's more of us than there is of them. And by us sticking together, they won't be able to institute the policies that they're trying.
No, and that society, that we're talking about, I mean, it killed more Native Americans than the Nazis killed Jews. So it's been an ongoing just ethnic slaughter, one after another, by these powers that be, that it traces back, to the Roman Empire and even beyond that. When you really look, it's been the same control grid going on time after time. So there's been so many different people, so many different ethnicities that have been subjected at different times to their wrath, and it's all about their power and control. So you're absolutely right. And we, as far as, we are facing something that this is a mechanism. I agree. I could see a bio, 9/11 happening.
Exactly. And comment on one of on one of the chats here, Corlander. I think it says Corlander. Paul is so arrogant. He thinks his people are the only people who have ever suffered. No. The Indians, the American Indians suffered. The people in Wuhan right now are suffering. I'm spending almost 24/7 and only sleeping 2 hours a day trying to get the word out to try to help people on this. It's everybody. It's involving the whole world. But I'm very concerned about the Biopatriot Act and the erosion of the civil liberties of our country. So it's not about my people, the Jewish people, which are my people, but so are my American citizens, and so is the world at large. We're a whole community. So Corlander can go fuck off.
Yeah, so we definitely have to be aware of what's happening and, do whatever we can to protect ourselves, our family, and definitely our liberties. That's the big attack. I, completely agree. It's been going on.
And our societies. It's not just the family. It's not about egocentrism. It's about, it does start at the home. But it reaches out to, the larger community. So Definitely. It's important. It's important to help your neighbor in times of need, especially the elderly. They're scared. Especially when there's, the early signs of Alzheimer's or dementia. They're going to get scared and they won't be able to adapt as quickly. And people like us need to step up to the plate to make sure that they're taken care of. That's the American way.
So getting back to the virus itself, this is a zero hedge sudden militarization of Wuhan's P4 lab raises new questions about the origin. That's obvious. I feel like a lot of this was put out there as a plant, honestly, when you look at it. The Chinese nationals that went into that lab in Canada, and then, the thought that they brought it over and it, was either mistakenly released or that China released it on their own people. It all seems too convenient to me, really, but I totally think this is not a natural thing that we're looking at.
My team has proven that it is a bioengineered virus. Can it be weaponized? Yes, it can be weaponized. But a steak knife can be weaponized also. So, people need to be careful when they use the word weaponized. Or, but it was definitely bioengineered. But it was bioengineered most likely for not nefarious reasons, but to understand what is going on with the natural host of the bat. And they supercharged the virus to speed up the research to come up with a vaccination. And it leaked out of the P4 facility. The question is, was it leaked out on purpose or was it leaked out by accident? But it was bioengineered for sure. There's no debate about that.
So what would you recommend?
It was not zoonotic. Go ahead.
What would be your recommendations to everybody that's now in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, the rest of the world, for the next upcoming 2 weeks, a month? What would you recommend that people should be doing?
Well, you definitely need to prep. I mean, if there's lockdown, you're not going to be able to go out with that much ease and get, supplies, food, toiletries. So I would definitely, start stocking up. A lot of people can't afford, 2 months or 3 months supplies, but, a minimum of 4 weeks of food and toiletries, medicines. If someone, needs, medicines, that's important to get. Talk to your doctor. Maybe get like a, prescription thing that, that can be filled out and ordered. If the medical system starts to break down, you need to start thinking about nutraceuticals and homeopathic methods. And my channel has talked about that, and different antiviral, antimicrobial type things that people can take. There's tons of research out there on the internet about antiviral, antimicrobial nutraceuticals, but also to boost up your immune system now with filtered water and away from GMO foods, and use for me, what I do, I can tell you what I do, and maybe people can mimic it. I don't know, but the iodine drops, tablets of zinc, more tablets of vitamin C, multivitamins. Multivitamins are really important as cofactors and coenzymes for enzymatic activity. So they'll help boost up your system and metabolism. I use NMN as an antioxidant to boost up your mitochondrial health. They'll give you more energy. They'll help to fight colds and boost up your immune system. I also am a firm believer of anti-inflammatories like turmeric. So you can use that. What's another thing that PQQ is, and CoQ10 is important supplementation. So the key is to use supplementation to help boost up your immune system and charge your battery. So when you do get hit by a pathogen, at least you have a fighting chance and you're fully charged. When your immune system is down and you get hit by a pathogen, it's a lot harder to fight it. And everyone knows that. And unfortunately, the powers that be wanted to get you sick and have a leaky gut and have constant chronic infections. But it's prep. Be prepared on a nutraceutical thing. I mean, if you get sick, you got to try to get to a doctor to catch it early, because you don't want that permanent scarring in the lung.
What are they doing right now, Dr. Cottrell, as far as for if you do go to the doctor and you have this, what are they using to combat it?
So the callers that are calling in to the channel are telling me how they're being treated. Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm hearing it directly from either their son or daughter that has it, or certain people that are coming down with the coronavirus. Now, people need to realize the coronavirus is a family of viruses. There's SARS within that family. There's Wuhan within that family. There's bad SARS-like within that family. So a lot of the coronaviruses that they test for are benign. They're the common cold. Now, they're going to get they get tested, and they may test positive for corona, but they may test negative for Wuhan. All right? And you may have really bad flu-like symptoms. And individuals that are tested for Wuhan, that's supercharged, the supercharged coronavirus, which could kill you. But right now, the way they're treating it is the ones that are testing with just coronavirus, they're treating it with painkillers, anti-nausea medication, stay hydrated, antibiotic. They're not giving antiviral yet, which is odd to me, because the antiviral is a protease inhibitor that would help to stop the spread of the virus. It's odd. Now, they may be doing that to save the stock, just in case there's a big outbreak, because there may not be enough protease inhibitors for the people that really have Wuhan. So they're not maybe giving it to people that are just coronavirus positive but Wuhan negative. Now, the ones that have Wuhan positive, the research is saying that you give them, that they should be getting that protease inhibitor early on to prevent the deep pneumonia. But unfortunately, there is not enough data coming out, if they're not being transparent enough, telling us how are they treating the confirmed Wuhan cases in the United States. We know in China, they are treating them with this, they're doing these clinical trials with remdesivir. And even the head of the NIH said that. But there's not enough remdesivir. It won't be enough for like months, like 6 months, 8 months. It's going to take a long time to be able to treat everybody. So that's why I'm saying boost up your immune system the best you can and try some of these homeopathic remedies, because that's all you got. And, the medical establishment, I'm concerned, is not taking this aggressively by treating it with protease inhibitors.
Well, the WHO, it's been just fascinating to watch, and how slow they moved, and then, the reactions ever since. It just makes you more suspicious.
Right.
Most definitely.
The thing is that this is why I call it the slow rollout of 9/11. It's like 9/11 in like slow-mo. And people get there's a cognitive dissonance. And they don't want to disrupt financial markets, because there's going to be a big supply chain breakdown, and that's going to cause companies to lay off people. It's going to cause disturbances in the commercial paper market. It's going to cause disturbances in the stock market, and even the counterparty loans between banks. So there is a financial component to try to quell the reality of what's going on worldwide, to make sure that the financial markets are stabilized. I am surprised. I'm very, very, very surprised that the stock market hasn't sold off more in the United States. It's shocking to me. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe it's being propped up by the Federal Reserve, and we just don't know it. I don't know. I don't have proof, but it's awfully odd to me that we have a major worldwide pandemic happening, and the stock market keeps on going up. Yet, when President Xi said that maybe he's not going to sign the trade agreement, the stock market goes down. I mean, come on, something's not right here.
Yeah, most definitely. It's really interesting, and the timing too, because it all came out right when they had that first piece of the deal. Cindy was like, that was so strange.
That was, someone who I know that did work inside the government. He did bring that to my attention first thing. He says, look at this parallel here. And he left it at that.
Right. I mean, we need, again, I only work on 2 hours of sleep a night to try to get the word out and to find out what's going on with the crematoriums in Wuhan, and to find out what's going on with the outbreaks in the United States and my connections in Canada. Canada is another worry. There may be some breakouts in Canada coming up really soon here, because they're doing the same mistakes that the United States, where they just let people just kind of spread around in the community, and now we're just waiting for it to come out in the data that they've been confirmed. And again, the test kits are just going out to the local areas. So we're going to see a big tick up, just like we saw 2 days ago when the Johns Hopkins jumped up the numbers to confirm cases of over 60,000. It went from 40,000 to 60,000. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a pattern here, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better.
Right, numbers are going up, not down. So it's very important to take personal preparation. And on a super quick side note, when you were talking about homeopathic medicine, I always like people to know if you can let go of the sugar and the processed foods, that really helps that homeopathic medicine work. Because if you're loaded with sugar, it can really cause problems.
There's an inflammatory response with the sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the surge in insulin.
Yes, thank you.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I try to reduce, sugar, and definitely never, ever, ever take artificial sweeteners.
Mm-mm.
Right.
Yeah, because that's, bad for your system and causes, problems. some people may have to take it because they're diabetic, but it's just better not to, be on a sugar a sugar diet. But unfortunately, in America, it's pop.
Yep.
Lots of pop. And my brother died from heart disease. The complications that he had were contributed to an abundance of too much sugar, and it caused arterial sclerosis at a faster rate, and he died from it at age 36. It's sad. Unfortunately, it's a common thing in my family history. But that is why I am trying to help people, because we are living. We're right here. We're living in the moment, and it is our duty to try to make the world a better place. And maybe I seem a little unhinged at times, but that's because I am so passionate about trying to help my neighbor and try to save my country. And I'm not trying to be like I know it all, because I don't. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. But I do know there's a lot of people out there that do know something I don't. And by sharing that common goal of trying to help each other, we can make this work. And that's the overall theme, is togetherness. Because by togetherness, we can make this a better world. But we have to realize that there are groups of people that are trying to knock us down. And we need to rise up as people in a peaceful manner to prevent them from instituting their goals. But push comes to shove. We need to realize that we may have to step up to the plate and shed blood to maintain our freedoms. And that is what was warned by Thomas Jefferson, that the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of patriots.
Yeah, these are most definitely trying times, and I'm sure you've read the Federalist Papers and all. Everything has gotten so far away from what it was supposed to be. It doesn't even resemble it. But, Banking Act 1871 was a major part of all this. 1871 is a fascinating year, too. I'm not sure if you've seen Albert Pike, but the famous statement that they're going to have 3 world wars, and he was a 33rd degree Mason and knew of the Illuminati plans back then. So, and then, of course, that tries...
Here's the problem. And even George Washington said this. In the Freemason world, they've been infiltrated by the Illuminati. Mm-hmm. And he was concerned about it. So not all Freemasons are bad people.
Oh, no. No, I have friends.
And I'll tell you what, the Freemasons, in their network with lodges, may be the answer to save this country. And the people that, that are on the side that all Freemasons are wrong, they're not listening. They're not paying attention to the real game here. And that we may need the lodges to coordinate to help save this country, because it was the Freemasons that started this country.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely evidence to that. We could see that.
Evidence. It's proof. There's proof of that. I mean, there's not. It's not. I mean, this is a fact. It's not. It's not circumstantial evidence. This is fact that this country was built on the Freemasons. The whole idea of the Constitution, that was built on a Freemason concept. Benjamin Franklin and George Washington and many other patriots that fought in the Revolution were Freemasons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've done videos on it. I'm well aware. New Atlantis.
But the Freemasons have been infiltrated by the Illuminati. And the Illuminati is trying to pull down the Illuminati is more on the side of the skull and bones. This thing is so wired, you don't even know who the enemy is.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. But what happens is that people that aren't as knowledgeable as you two about the subject, they just assume that all Freemasons are bad people. That's not the case. By far. They're trying to help, their fellow neighbors.
Oh yeah, the vast majority, believe they're doing the best they can.
Yeah, but the coordination for the Patriot movement, part of it will be through the lodges. You did it. That's a fact. It's going to happen through a big part of the coordination is going to be through the lodges. We're taking back our country. The rest of the citizenry needs to stand up and help.
Well, we definitely have to keep waking people up and be very aware of everything that's going on.
It's not just aware; it's to act.
Right.
That's the key. It's to act.
You can lead a horse to water.
Through action and prayer. Through action and prayer, we can make this happen.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. I mean, Cindy and I probably on average spend about 1 to 2 hours a day in prayer and meditation. It's part of our regular, just part of what we don't miss, so that's a huge part of what we do personally as well. So I want to thank you for joining us, and there's a lot more I know to discuss, but in this one, just shy of an hour and a half. And everybody,
I can talk 24 hours on this subject. But I mean, I apologize for, being unhinged at times, but I'm telling you, I feel the danger.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't feel that others are sensing it. And I'm trying to, sound the alarm to wake up, because there's been an awful lot of people that went asleep after 9/11.
That's what I heard something about, that they would wait until people went back to sleep after 9/11 to do something like this again. And no, I do feel and understand your passion. You can see something that you can see it coming. Many people cannot. And, you're frustrated. You're trying to get the word out. You are getting the word out. You have made a difference. Just like I said, with that one little statement, when someone calls their representatives are figuring there's at least 1,000 more people behind them thinking the same thing. That makes it different. When you put it like that, then maybe that motivates some of us. But
I hope so.
You are. You're doing the right thing, the exact right thing.
But get some rest too, because you'll just burn yourself out.
We need you.
There were people that weren't as passionate during the early stages of the Holocaust, and I wish there was, because if there was people like me back then, back in 1941, maybe not as many Jews would have died. So I have to push myself, because there's not enough people out there like me doing it. That's why I keep on saying I need help. I've been begging almost on every video I do. I need help. Spread the word. Raise the alarm. Save the country. Help your neighbor. And I'll keep on screaming until I drop dead.
Well, we're all going to definitely do our part. And, that's the bottom line. We have to, try to do whatever we can do in a positive manner to make sure there's never a second Holocaust. Because, I mean, really, the Holocaust was not even the first Holocaust, as we were saying. There's been countless ones. Mm-hmm. It's just...
But we've gotten to the point, because of the internet and the speed of information to share to people, we've gotten to a social awareness that we don't need to have another one. No more Holocausts for any people. We can end it. But we have to wake up. Because if we don't wake up, another one's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Paul. Most definitely invigorating.
Yes, it's been quite the honor.
Conversation, and there's just so much for each individual to do, and coming together is of prime importance. Most definitely.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate you, allowing me to, speak my piece and try to raise the alarm. I really do appreciate it, and getting the word out will save lives. This presentation will save lives. How many lives, I don't know, but it will save. And so that alone was worth it.
And that's a beautiful thing. And, as Cindy's always saying now, it's like we all have a different piece to this pie, and different perspectives and different information. And by sharing, then we all, help each other learn.
That's right. But thank you for having me on the show. And if there's anything that you need or you want to talk about, just reach out and I'll be there for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cottrell. It's truly been our pleasure. Really, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. God bless.
God bless.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank everyone for being with us. It was definitely an invigorating one. Lots of interesting conversation in the chat room. I know that was a roller coaster ride for you all. That's the thing that hit me today. Putting together everything here it was interesting. I could see them setting up for that whole global one world society. We all know about this. We've been hearing about this for forever, since I was a teenager, so we've all known about it, but it does feel like there's the pieces in place right now that could put us in such a lockdown we may never be able to get our freedoms back.
Right. And I can hear Dr. Cottrell in his voice. He does see something coming that maybe many of us cannot see, and he can see it in its holistic view, and it's scary. It's definitely scary, and it's something to pay attention to. I think it's super important that we all, raise the immune system. We are so blessed to have this time to boost the immune system. I mean, that really, I want to hammer that one home. It's time to get healthy.
Yeah, most definitely. And, it's we don't all agree on all things. And, obviously, there was some semi-inflammatory talk there, to say the least. And, some might view like it's calling for an out-and-out revolution. I think we need a revolution in consciousness. I mean, we need to wake up as many people as possible to that fact that we've been in this control grid matrix, and we need to take that back. Yeah, as Ark says, we need to start thinking way outside of the box. And Ark of Shiloh said too, if you think guns are going to help you, well, when there's lasers on satellites and there's anti-gravity, and I mean, I've witnessed 20 years ago a TR-3B. I can imagine the technology that's there. So, I know that's just, the tip of the iceberg. And, ultimately it still is a spiritual battle as well. And so I've been really going within a lot on this, and that's why I keep going back to the Mahabharata as well as some others, other sources as well, and meditating on it and trying to get direction. And I've had you guys reach out too, and say, Jesus says turn the other cheek, and that's the way I'd like to live. But when they're shooting at you with machine guns, can you turn the other cheek? And look what happened to the Native Americans, how they were just wiped out in mass. We know about smallpox on blankets. Oh, we got to get for you, we're going to make peace for you now, here you go. Annie says, I remember your exercise video, you are hardcore. Thank you. Yeah, and Cindy was saying, we got to do a video showing us doing some of our regular martial art training as well, because honestly, it keeps us sane. It feels good to hit a target every now and then, and that's how you could stay grounded and centered. You get some intense physical exercise. Like we probably do, 500 or 600 kicks in like a 20-minute period. And it definitely gets the heart rate up, and it feels good too. Exercise is key, guys. That's the other part we didn't talk about. We've been talking about all the things we could take, herbal supplements. Rosemary said boswellia, and Cindy and I, we bought like half a dozen bottles of boswellia, and we've been taking it every day. And actually, I like the taste of it. It's something, I don't know, it's kind of yummy. It's like peppermint or something. Yeah. So, but the other thing is exercise. Yeah. Exercise is going to boost your immune system, and you got to make sure you're getting in at least a half hour a day of some good solid exercise, at least, if not more. And I do believe in practicing what you preach. And so I was born in Connecticut, and I left the Northeast, and I lived in South Carolina, and I lived in a few other states, and, I wouldn't go to a blue state because there's too much big brotherhood there, so, that's just me. I don't want the rights infringed, First or Second Amendment, I believe in them both. And, So it's just, I think we do have to live, practice what we preach is a good thing.
It is a good thing. And, as far as exercise is concerned, any body movement that you can get in, because I know I used to have dislocated shoulder, knee, everything. I mean, I've been a mess. So I've had to, modify a lot of my exercise, but we need to drain those lymph nodes and then fill our body back up with really good stuff. The sugar, that's got to go, really. I mean, in a time like this, that alone can help boost your immune system.
Exactly. So do everything you can. So the exercise as well is key, on a daily basis. And I do think we need to do meditation, yoga, QiGong, something like that to just, big, deep breath. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. And, I'm going to do a call-in show soon. I want to talk to some of you guys. I want to talk to all of you guys, but I think it's time that we do a call-in show like we used to do before, so we could get different people coming in with different perspectives. We love you guys. We love you all, and I bring up Arca Shiloh just because him and I, we had some apparent differences, but again, it was because even with all the videos I've done, you still don't always... You're not always getting across everything that you believe in. And so what seemed to be a difference really wasn't a difference at all. And, we each have a piece to a puzzle, and we have to come together as a family. And I don't think it's time to call for a violent revolution in the country at all, because, what has violent revolutions ever done but always lead to another violent revolution? I think we do have to get out of the matrix. They want us in this matrix, and they care about, I love you too. They care about money and control and power. So any way we could get out of the matrix is good, and we have to band together as well as we could. I do think, and there's been some prophecies to this point, that when we get out of these times, we're going to be living more like the natives lived in small tribal communities, and I could see that starting. There's a lot of communities out there now that people are they're coming together, and they're just breaking off from society, and look at what happens with some of those people that try to break off from the matrix, because they really do get attacked if they get big enough, if they get well known enough. And then there's things that happen that make them look like they were crazy. But, that is a threat to the powers that be, is getting out of the matrix, no longer being part of the system. And it's easier said than done. I understand that.
It is. And with that, you guys, it has been super wonderful to have everybody here and your guys' support and your input. And we truly appreciate all of you.
So God bless, my friends, and namaste.
Namaste.